And welcome back to In the Cage with Bards here on nextsportstar.com. And our next guest needs no introduction anywhere in the civilized world. He is the UFC Hall of Famer, the man known as the world's most dangerous man, the one, the only, Ken Shamrock, back on the program. How you doing today, Ken?
Good, man. Thanks for that introduction. Appreciate that.
Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, one of the all-time greats in the sport, and kind of back in the spotlight lately with the Spike TV special that was done on your adoptive brother Frank, Bound by Blood, where the two of you actually reunited for the first time in 15 years. That was a really heavy moment. It was really powerful television. I can only imagine what it felt like being in that room. Like, was it a real sense of tension when Frank walked in the room and you saw each other finally?
Well, it was. You know, most of my experience with my brother has been, you know, and like I said, from my point of view and my side, has been, you know, not trusting what it is that he wanted, and, you know, not being able to count on him to be a part of the family. So when he first walked in the room, it was almost like this person that was coming into the room that had tried to destroy, you know, our family. And so, yeah, I was angry, and there was some tension there, and I was definitely really hoping for some closure. And so I think we got it.
Was it really cathartic for you to get all those feelings out, to be able to say to Frank and for Frank to say to you what you guys had been holding back basically for 15 years?
It was easy for me. I don't think it was as easy for Frank, but, you know, I had been really trying to get together with him for years to try and figure out what his reasons were. And I think he had a lot of demons and a lot of issues that he had to get through and deal with before he could, you know, move to that next step, which is confronting, you know, his past. And so I'm glad he did that, because I think that it's something he really needed. You know, we all have to do that at some point in time, where we make mistakes along the way, and then you know, we have to confront those mistakes, whether they're with our children, our parents, our brothers or sisters, or just life itself. So he was able to do that. I'm not sure, you know, how much closure he's going to get with my dad, because he never did get the chance to make that right. So that's something that'll be hanging over his head, I think, for the rest of his life. But he'll be okay. You know, we'll work through it.
And yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of issues that come from Frank's reaction to your father, Bob Shamrock's death. Just hearing your voice when you're talking about it, you could kind of hear, you know, how much it bothered you. Is there any remaining bitterness or antipathy coming from you, or were you able to get all that out when you talked to him?
No, I mean, if you're being honest, I mean, it just doesn't go away. You know, anybody that comes in and is able to lay it down like that, there wasn't much of a problem in the first place. This is years and years of bitterness and anger, and it takes time for you to be able to put that away and be able to, you know, justify it and log it somewhere where you can say, okay, I understand it. I know where you're coming from. And I do. I don't agree with it, but I do understand. And that's something I didn't have before, whereas I didn't have an understanding of why he did things. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but at least I know it wasn't just out of malice and anger and just to be mean. You know, he had his problems and his issues. So, you know, it's good to know that. It's good to be able to talk about it. But you can't just put it away. It takes time. Like I said, it takes time to get those things filed away so they make sense to you.
Mm-hmm. But it was a good first step, is what I'm hearing anyway. How long, in fact, was your meeting with Frank? Because obviously they showed, you know, 10 minutes or so on the television. But how long did the two of you actually sit down and talk?
You know, I couldn't be exact, because when you're in the moment, you really lose track of time. But it had to be at least a couple hours.
Wow. Was there anything that didn't make it into the program that you'd wish they had shown?
Yeah, there was. No. There's a lot of things that we did You know, even I think more on my behalf. I think they got everything for Frank, but on my behalf, where you know, I was definitely letting him know how I felt, and I'm glad they didn't put it in there because it doesn't belong in there. But you know, that's 15 years of my anger, and I think Frank was more or less in the spot of being, you know, point in time of trying to get things rectified and put away, and I was still kind of angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that you still kind of wanted to fight Frank. Well, when you said that, did you mean like just you know, the two of you behind closed doors in a gym somewhere, or you know, actually out in front of people, you know, an arena event, so to speak?
Well, when before me and Frank sat down and talked about it, it didn't matter to me where. I would have done it on the street, or anywhere. Just so as I can, you know, direct some of this anger into something that would, you know, make me feel better about what he did. It wouldn't, I don't think, because I still wouldn't have had closure of why he did it. But, you know, that's how I grew up. That's how we did. And now, I'm at a point now where a lot of people look at it and go, well, why would you fight your brother? We did it in the gym over and over again. The only problem when we did it before was I was always thumping Frank. I was always, you know, the one teaching him, and at times had to put him in his place several times. Now we're equals. I mean, his skill is definitely, if not past mine, as far as the jiu-jitsu, not the leg locks and stuff. Obviously, leg locks is what I do, and the striking has got to be. You know, his skill level as far as striking is probably better than mine, but I'm more of a you know, in-your-face fighter with power. So it's just definitely two different types of fighters. But he is there, right, my equal, and I thought to myself, you know, we've beat on each other for so long and trained with each other. What is the difference between us getting in the ring and making money doing it, rather than doing it in the gym when we're just trying to prepare for fights? To me, it doesn't make sense for people to look at it and say, why would you brothers fight? Why wouldn't we?
Right, okay. Now, there's some people who said, you know, who asked rather, you know, why do this meeting in front of the cameras? Why not, you know, hash things out behind closed doors? Why do it for a Spike TV special?
You know, I don't know. That's not my... It was my opportunity to be able to talk to Frank. I tried to do it several times before that with obviously with no success. Frank put this together. I did not. This was Frank's special. I did it, and I was very skeptical about doing it because I didn't know how they were going to portray me. But I took a chance because I wanted to talk to Frank. I wanted to find out what his reasons were, what went on inside of his mind. And if this was the only way I could get it, then that's what I did. So I didn't, like I said, this wasn't a show that I put together. It was a show that I was asked to do. And I took a chance on doing it, even though I could cut it whatever they wanted to cut it. And I did it because I needed to find out what his problem was. Why would he do something like this with the person that saved his life? And so I took the chance, and I was very, very pleased that they didn't make me look bad. You know, it was Frank's story. It's not the way I've seen it, but, you know, it's his story. But they didn't make me look bad, and that's what I really appreciated, was they really let us talk.
And what's the relationship with Frank like now? Because I remember the last time I had you on the show, I asked you if you could punch anyone in the world in the face, who would it be? And you replied right away, Frank Shamrock. So what's that relationship like right now?
Well, you know, it's definitely, it's better. We're definitely on the direction of trying to heal and fix things, but, you know, there's a long road here, and there's a lot of things that has to be dealt with along the way, and hopefully we don't lose sight of why. You know, because it definitely wasn't for a TV special, you know. Obviously, it wasn't my TV special, you know. It wasn't something that I put together. It was a chance for me to sit down and talk with them, and I took it. So, now there's a lot of things that have to be, you know, as we go through trying to heal these things, a lot of these things that we're both going to find out we have to deal with, you know, that it's not all these things that he means, these hurtful and things and the things that have happened in the past are not just going to disappear. They're still there, and we've got to learn to figure out how we can deal with those things as we move forward in our relationship.
Are you in contact with Frank now? Are you speaking on a regular basis at all?
Not on a regular basis, but we do drop lines here and there. I know we're both trying to help one another as far as different ventures that we have going on. We'll drop a line to one another if we have something that we think the other one might be interested in doing. You know, it's a start. It's a start. You know, I mean, we just don't have everyday things to talk about right now. It's going to take some time before that happens.
I see. And you've also had a reconciliation of sorts with Tito Ortiz, one of your great rivals, some say your greatest rival in your storied UFC career. Is that a maturity on Tito's part? Is that a change in thinking on your part? Or is it just the existence of a common enemy you guys have in Dana White?
Well, I think it started with the common enemy. But then I think it also flowed over into him knowing me and me knowing him. You know, and then once we did that, obviously there's a huge amount of respect for one another that we weren't able to say prior, just because, you know, we were adversaries. And the way I approach fights is different than what he's probably used to. And I have to really dislike somebody, and I have to find something that I dislike about him and pick at it till it makes me so mad. That's how I prepare for fights. I've always done that. It's the way I grew up in my life. So I think it took a while for him to realize who I was, and that, you know, I'm not a person that walks around outside of fighting, picking fights and making people mad. That's what I do when I'm trying to prepare for a fight. And I think it took him a while to understand that, and I think it took having a common enemy to do that.
It's funny how things can change like that. I mean, the two of you were in each other's face for years and made a lot of money, you know, being enemies. And now that you're both kind of respected veterans, both UFC Hall of Famers, is it fair to say that your perspective on life is a little more similar now than it was before?
Oh, you know, my perspective on life right now, you know, is family. You know, I've always tried during my career to make sure that I kept my family close together, because I knew that that time would come where I would meet them. So I was able to do that. You know, I know a lot of families fall apart when you have a professional athlete, because they spend so much time traveling and training and get prepared, and their minds are not focused a lot on the family. But I was able to do that in my career, is to keep it close together. And now I'm really, right now watching my grandkids.
Yeah, we can hear the little ones in the background there.
Yeah, so I'm really blessed that I was able to have that. And moving into the later years, I'll tell you, it's been a really huge support system for me. Being able to accept the fact that, you know, I don't have too many more years of really being involved in MMA and enjoying every moment of it. At the same time, really start to transition over into putting all my attention, all my energy and focus into my family.
Absolutely. Getting back to you and Tito, there's the statements on Twitter. You, Tito, Frank, and Randy Couture are planning on showing up at the UFC's 20th anniversary show in November. What's the plan there? You guys, are you doing this? Is this a thing?
I don't know, man. You know, I don't know. I know that there was talk about it. I know I was contacted, you know, by Tito and JT Walsh about maybe going in and being there. But so far, it's just been talk. So we'll wait and see what happens. You know, the hard part is that if we do show up, it's not about us trying to make problems, which is what I think Dana White is trying to portray. You know, like these comic characters coming in to save the world. That's just not it. You know, we're not there to try and save anything. If we do happen to show up, and we are there, it's about supporting what we helped build, which we're being pushed out of. It's a shame too, because if you look at the track record of Dana White, it almost seems like anybody that is popular, that draws money and helps them make the UFC what it is today, when they're done, Dana White doesn't want any part of them, doesn't want them to be around to take any of his spotlight.
Do you think that's kind of Dana's business mentality, that the brand, the UFC brand, has to be bigger than any one individual? Do you think that's his thinking on this point?
Well, if it is, he's sadly mistaken. The brand, you can't have a brand without a face, without fighters going in and putting their butts on the line and training hard and performing. If you look at every sport that we see, all the big four sports, every time an athlete decides to retire, and especially if he's a Hall of Famer, they use them on their cast, whatever capacity they can use them, because they realize that the foundation of the sport has been built on these faces, and they realize that longevity-wise, that they're going to keep all those fans, especially the ones that get a little bit older. They're going to keep a lot of these guys around because there's some familiar faces that they've seen on TV that are still part of the organization, they're still part of the foundation. But what UFC is doing is slowly tearing apart the foundation by hurting these legends by an owner spouting off things at these Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. So it's tearing apart the fan base. It's not gluing it together. It's not keeping the foundation strong. It's tearing it apart, and slowly, not fast, but slowly tearing it apart. And pretty soon, it's just going to fall apart.
And as an MMA pioneer, what changes would you like to see take place, to help out to the previous generation of fighters more? The guys whose blood, sweat, and tears helped build this empire that we see today. I mean, the other major sports have pension plans. Like you said, there's a lot of guys who have become team ambassadors in later years and things of that nature. A lot of guys who work on the PR side. I mean, not everyone can be Chuck Liddell and just kind of work for the UFC in an unspecified position for the rest of their life, right?
Yeah, definitely not taking any shots at Chuck. I like Chuck. I think he's a good guy, But, it's a sad thing because there's a lot of people out there before Chuck and after Chuck that should be in positions to be able to be a part of an organization. If you look at Gary Goodrich, I don't know if too many people know about this, but Gary Goodrich is not doing well. No. His brain damage. He can't hardly talk. He can't take care of himself. He gave his life to the MMA world, and there's nothing being done on helping this man, other than his close family and friends trying to raise money. But these are the things I'm talking about that we don't see UFC doing. Even though he might not be directly related to his start of his career in UFC, which he did. Mm-hmm. He was, it wasn't like a huge thing there. He was more with Japan, but he was in the UFC. And to see that there's nothing, absolutely zero recognition towards this man, it's a shame, and it's going to get worse. We can't keep the UFC as something that all the legends, the Hall of Famers, and the undercard guys that helped build this organization. It's not going to be around very long if we continue to keep going in this direction where we're not going to show any love to our legends, except for the ones that you think that are going to, say yes sir and no sir to. Those are the ones that you're going to bow down to. That you get to change history because your personality. If you don't get along with somebody, then you don't get in, or that you're not going to be a part of this organization you helped build because of a certain individual, which is Dana White, that may not like you because you're a strong personality. And unfortunately, and fortunately, for the UFC and for the history of MMA, there are a lot of guys who have strong personalities, because the only way you can be, not the only way, but the only way for some of these guys to be legends and world champions and survive in the world was to have strong personalities, and you can't expect them to just shut it down because you may hurt somebody's feelings that owns the UFC. So we're very boisterous, we're very vocal, we speak our minds. Doesn't mean we're always right. And if you look at the other organizations, other big sports, a lot of these guys speak their minds, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be held out of the Hall of Fame. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be a part of the organization. So, hey, listen, man, it's a sad thing. It's happening. It's real. Hopefully, the fans, which I believe, in my opinion, are the strongest force in the world in any sport, they can make the change if they so choose to. They don't have to put up with what's being done. They can just say, you know what, either we start making some changes so that the sport starts getting stronger and becomes more viable, and also, too, for the future, and not just 10 years or 20 years, but 50 years down the road, that is, we know it's not going to fall apart like boxing. And the fans can do that. The fans are the ones that have the strongest position of anybody. The legends are doing it now. The Hall of Famers are doing it now. I started doing this 6 years ago. I had nobody backing me on it. They just heard me talk about it, and a lot of people are like just talking, you know, well, he's just a disgruntled fighter, or he needs money, or he's broke. You know, and I don't get anything on this. So I don't know what the comments are for that, but I'm not going to make anything on this. I'm speaking up because it's wrong, and that's the bottom line. Now I've got different people supporting me on it now, which is giving me a foothold to be able to do what's right.
And how much does that bother you when you hear Dana White say things like that, that the only reason that you're speaking out is because that you're broke, you're just trying to get your name out there? The last thing I heard Dana say about you is that you owe him $175,000 and he's coming to collect. How do you react to that when you hear these things?
Well, I don't, because I've been around Dana long enough to know that he's just talking. He's just spouting off, and then after he realizes what he does, he quiets down, just like you don't hear him now. Someone's in his ear telling him, hey, be quiet, and he has a hard time doing that, because every time he opens his mouth, he hurts the organization, you know. And so he either says F you dirtbag, or you know, he attacks you with stuff that isn't the issue. And every time that you try to get him to answer questions, that's how he answers back, and has never answered the issue of where's the money? Why is it that these guys are not making money? He never answers those questions other than saying, oh, these guys make money. We've always paid our fighters well. But yet there's no proof. There's absolutely no proof. The only proof we see is guys getting on there and saying, I didn't make enough money, I have to retire. Or legends coming in and saying, you know what, you guys are screwing these guys over. They're not getting paid what they're supposed to be paid. The numbers don't match up. And, you know, the only time you ever get an answer back is if it's something derogatory. Never the issue.
No, and that's a good point. And, you know, you would think that it behooves Dana White, that it's actually in his best interests to invest more in his talent and make sure that these guys, you know, have a way to leave the sport gracefully. Because the more stories that you hear, like a Gary Goodridge, which is a heartbreaking story, the more the media, the mainstream media, people like that are going to turn an eye to the sport and say, well, what's happening to these guys? I mean, they're laying their lives on the line and they're being left, you know, with nothing left to give, basically.
Yeah, you know, it's sad, too, because a lot of times people will make mention on how much you made, and fans just don't understand. Really, it's hard, because I know I was on both sides of the fence at one time. It's really hard for them to understand that you can't live another 50 years on what you made unless you continue. Because, I mean, you know, when you talk about how much money these guys are bringing home after they're done fighting, like, for instance, let's just throw out $1 million. By the time you pay taxes, government, state, and then you pay taxes for other things in your life, housing, cars, school, clothing, food, you add all that up. At the end of the year, you'd be lucky if you take home probably a quarter of that. So it's not really reality on what they're seeing. And so this reality, because they can't really see this and touch it and understand it, they don't understand when the fighters go, you know what, I don't have any money left. I'm broke. And they're like, well, you're blowing all these girls and strip clubs and drugs. And it's like, you can't get them to understand what it is and what life takes from you over 3 or 4 years. And when you have 50 more years to live, it's just really difficult to put that into perspective. And so, but then you look at the flip side of that, and you say, well, when I fought, they paid me $1 million, but they made $120 million, and I was the face.
Yeah.
And so, wait a minute. So you look at that and you go, well, wow, that's not even 1%. And yet, this guy put his ass on the lines over and over again, and he only has about 5 years left in his career to make this money in order to live on for the rest of his life. Because when he's done fighting, he's probably broke down. His back surgeries, neck surgeries, shoulder knee surgeries. He can't go out and get a regular job in order to support his family. So then he's left, like you see these sad stories on TV. Then he's left trying to scramble and make money off the name that he built, which he can't do because the organization won't let him use his fight or what he made or did in that organization because they reserve the right for them to not use that thing. So now he's left to what? His reputation, to go out and make money on appearances and autograph signings because the organization will not let him use anything that he did in that organization, and he made them millions of dollars.
It is a sad situation. What do you think has to change for, your GSP and your Anderson Silva, guys who are being taken care of, but, it's their face on the marquee. Like, we've seen with the numbers breakdown, people gravitate towards certain fighters and, make them the stars. Really, of course, you have to win. You have to back it up in the cage. But, people buy GSP fights. People buy Anderson Silva fights. People bought Ken Shamrock fights. People bought Tito Ortiz fights. So what has to happen for, the marquee talent to get, I'm not even talking about the same money, but the same sort of revenue split that you see in boxing with guys like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, the guys that are the business drivers in that sport?
Well, I'll tell you what has to happen is what's happening right now. It started almost in every sport. It took one guy to sacrifice himself. One guy, because if you look at baseball, there was one kid that stepped up and won free agency. He got crushed, but it planted the seed for the rest of the guys coming up behind him, and now you have that. That's what it takes. It takes people like myself, like Tito Ortiz, like Frank, and J.T. Walsh has been a big supporter of this, really put his neck out there and really been trying to push this to try and get our word out there. It takes guys who are going to step up. GSP, I think, might be ready to do that. But it does take these guys to step up and say, you know what, I have already been through it. I'm looking for absolutely nothing out of this because you will not get in. You're going to be the sacrificed lamb. We will be the sacrificed lamb because we won't get credit for this. Somebody else who steps up and makes it happen will get credit for it, but we will plant the seed. We will show them the way. And that's what it takes, and that's what we're doing.
Is a fighters union too far-fetched in an individual sport like MMA?
Well, you look at boxing, and you try and look at that as a kind of a platform. When you have this kind of an event, it's very difficult because there's going to be guys that do not want to participate. Most of those guys are going to be the guys that are making money. But you know what? You can't blame them because this is their. Hey, Garrett, don't put that in your mouth. You'll choke on this. You can have it, but don't put it in your mouth because you'll choke on it. But what you do is, adults can do that, not you. But what you fall into is that most of these guys that making money will not step out. I don't blame them because it's the only way they can support their family. It's when you don't have anything to lose, like myself and Tito and other guys that are Frank, and they're stepping up because really we're in a position now where we can go ahead and do that. I did it when I did have something to lose. I'm a little bit more crazier, I guess. I paid the price for it. I definitely did because I'm not making the money I should make with the things that I could have done because they cut me off.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't care because I believe without a shadow of a doubt that down the road that this will get fixed and that the UFC and MMA will be better off for it.
We can only hope that happens. Ken, we won't take too much more of your time here. I know you got to go be grandpa for the day here, but what does the future hold for Ken Shamrock? What's on your plate right now?
Well, I definitely looking at doing some commentating. I love the commentating. for Bama in the UK. With Frank Trigg, it's been awesome. And, also, too, I got a sports drink coming out, the Shamrock Slam. Really, really enjoy that. That's going to be a good drink. It's real healthy. It's going to be an energy drink and a fitness drink, all healthy. And also, too, got a ProFit, www.profit101.com, which is a self-defense site that we're doing online, so people don't have to go into a gym, and they can spend 15, 20 minutes on that site and learn how to defend themselves. And, so I got a documentary coming out. It's going to be out here anytime soon. It's going to talk about my life. We'll definitely get that out there once we know when and what station. And also do a reality show with some security work, bodyguard security work, which is what I'm getting into now. I love that, being able to protect people. So, and I got some other things, but like I said, I don't want to, those are all things that are in the plan, in the works, so we'll see what happens with them. But that's about it right there. So, really love going out. This second part of my life is about, one, trying to make people aware of what's going on in MMA, and two, being able to go out and meet all the fans at different appearances and stuff, shake hands with these different people, and give support to all the people that supported me over the years.
Well, I can't wait for the documentary. I can't wait for the reality show. Just throwing this out there, Bellator seems to be reaching out to the legends. They had Randy Couture, they had Frank on as coaches of their Fight Master reality show. Would you be interested in a position like that if it was offered?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. I know we've definitely rubbed shoulders for a little while, so we'll see where it goes. I know they've got a lot of superstars there already. So we'll see if the door opens for me, and we'll definitely give it a look if we do move forward with it.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait for that. Ken, thank you so much for your time today. Always a thrill to talk to a legend like yourself and get your unique perspective on what's happening in the world of mixed martial arts right now. We are actually fresh out of time here on In the Cage with Bars and XSportsStar.com. But big thanks to all our guests today. Just an amazing show, capped off with a legend. You can't argue with that. But we're going to sign off now. But tune in again, because it's always great stuff. And until next time, the bell has sounded.
We'll take you in.